are you at least 18 years of age or older? And then, yeah, if you're a registered voter. And so a lot of times that what I do see, even on emails, though, is a lot of times, though a lot of those messages are going to be asking about, oh, okay, are you registered to vote? And then, as well, signatures, especially signatures, especially. And, so I know I was mentioning before about signatures, but you might even want to know too, as to where that a lot of the things that I see nowadays that compared to the Missouri compared to the constitutional test, and I can remember took that class, that class called government. I think it was history class, and where it's doing the studies about politics, and I can remember that I had that on my first year of high school, and I could just remember that all the questions that they ask you, and one of them, of course, was the three basic rights, and knowing about the Speaker of the House, if the person leaves office, and or as I say, for who takes over after this. So yeah, a lot of that stuff that they talked about, for the talk about whenever it comes to taking government class, and so I can just remember that a lot of those questions that they asked you on there, I'm like, yeah, a lot of, and then I remember the teacher even told me, it was in civics class. I can just remember the teacher was explaining about a little bit about, that may have been, in math class. That might have been a math class, but the teacher was telling me about a lot of our tax money that goes to build roads and infrastructure and all that. And so really though, I'm like, how many of us who maybe weren't who were that, really though, that, just the kind of the fact of the matter about our tax money, that if you have like a form that explains where our tax money goes to, but let's just say if you were to walk into a store and you see magazines on the racks, and let's just say if it's a newspaper, like if you go to the store like on an early Sunday morning, and you see newspapers and catalogs in the magazine section at the store or even at the gas stations, and so the first thing that you're going to maybe see something is that you're going to maybe see something like, a photo of like a little design, front cover design, something kind of like this, to where it talks about the elections and then about your convention speech, and as well as like your inaugurations and other thing that's related to political news and all that. But a lot of times, what I also see too, of talking about, that for just $3, for a catalog, or just $3 for this item right here. So a lot of times it sure seems that way, that the price tag, and I know that a lot of these companies, like the Postal Dispatch, or if it's a New York Times or other publishing companies, might even say too that $3 even, or I'm like, for just $3 that you will be able to, which includes stickers, and a lot what I have seen whenever I do go to the stores, and I don't know if everybody has really paid attention to that, to where whenever you buy something that's related to political news or something like that a lot of times it's like you might see something on the front or the back or somewhere that it's going to say that includes stickers, and even includes like a little, a bookmark or something like that. I'm like, how many of them are really going to include like a bookmark, or maybe, thanks, for your purchase, thanks for purchasing this kit or something like that. So a lot of stuff that you might see up for market, and want to know just a little bit too, to where that between Democrat and Republican parties, though, but still that it sure seems that way, that for $3, and but I just really think too that like everybody probably say too, that a lot of those, like anybody else could probably think that well, we're just doing our job, but still that the one thing that I'm just kind of like wondering too is to where that about profiles, and so let's just say that, in case of anybody that may wonder, to where that around this time of the year, that normally that you would be, having to pick up more hours at your job and trying to work out, the employment status and all that, and maybe filling out other applications related to something important. Maybe if it's to be able to take care of Medicaid registration or something like that, or if it's anything about health insurance, medical insurance, or an application related to something important. But then it's like, say, you may have to postpone some of that just for the elections, and so that's why it sure seems that way, that you have right here, profile right here. But really though, if I in case of any that may say this, toward that a lot of times though, that it's emails that you're going to maybe getting an email from the congressman. You might be getting an email or a text message from the from the governor. It could also be the House Senate. It could also be the Senate, the senator, and then the secretary or somebody like that. And so a lot of times it sure seems that way, that whenever you get an email address, and you might get it for a reason, you might get a cell phone for a reason, and so that's why it sure seems that way, toward that all what you hear about on the news about is toward all the Democrats are all the parties are all working hard and getting together just to be able to be able to get that the country might get everything all straight for what goes on in the country, but I can also tell everybody too that ever since before I was born, and you ought to know too that before even my time, that knowing about where the country was going. So if we're talking about something that happened from back in 1977 or maybe 1979, or if it was maybe from back in the early 71 or 72 or 1969, tell people that that was before my time. But of course, that does not always mean that you're not qualified to answer a lot of those political questions, and that may not mean that no, if you're a registered voter, and plus that anything that you know about what's going on in the country, especially, and so a lot of times it sure seems that way, that ever since the year of from Abraham Lincoln to maybe Theodore Roosevelt, from the 37th president, you're likely wearing out too, to where that what are you really qualified for so far as participating in any source of party, and as far as the election goes. And so it sure seems that way, that that the questions that are asked on some of those ballots though, and it's like, want to know too that really if that's really under my control or not, about the fact about, okay, do you oppose to this decision and all that. So a lot of times that's usually what I have to think about, is that whenever I go vote, and then questions that they ask me on there, and the first time I went to go vote, that vote for president, but then also about the tax laws, and so I really don't know if they're going to maybe have something on those amendments about anything such as maybe gas. I'm like, if it's the cost of fuel, or maybe if it is, I'm like, I think one of them was also the cost of tobacco products and all that. But still, that a lot of the stuff that I see now, then people say too that back, you heard that story before, toward that from back in early 1995 and 1996, that back in 1996, a lot of that stuff that you not only was I too young really to understand all of it, but still that around the November's election, that at least that you don't have to go take the test. I'm like, the map test. I'm like, there was during that time, and I know that, and I can remember that. I can remember that very well. That a lot of the schools, like quite a few of the schools, were either closed, or certain areas that were closed off, for the elections. And everybody else are probably thinking too that your teachers, a lot of times, that there was still school on that day, on election day of back in 1996, but I can just remember that certain areas of the school that were closed off, and I can just remember that certain areas, I was always wondering that what all that was about over there. And so now it's like, whenever you look at those ballots and compare to back whenever you were younger, that whenever you were a young man in the 4th and 5th grade, doing some of your class work, and want to know too that that, yeah, whenever you take a test, that there's what you call certain problems that you had to score a certain answer. Like you had to answer correctly on a lot, and so it sure seems that way. That even from the elections from back in 1984, from back in 1984, and even from back in I think back in '92, and so if I could probably think of from the past 20 years, if I got all the election years correct, that it's like about at least 3 or 4 of them that I was too young to register. So a lot of times, a lot of things that they talk about, a lot of things that these politics and newscasters talk about the elections, if we're talking about nearly 30 years of presidents that we've had, that if they do, okay, very well, or say no, not so great, and so it sure seems that way toward it. Those are registered voters, but I just really think too that really though that I guess say go out and vote, and but still that you right to go vote, but still that that I know that it's like say about each and every year or every 4 years or so, but still I'm also thinking about here is toward it. Maybe if you don't get don't be surprised if you do get a text or a phone call from one of the congressmen, and they're gonna be like, "Hey, did you get my letter?" And so that compared to talking to the principal over the phone, and I want to know just a little bit too toward it that you got to follow up about what's been going on, but still that but I have this right here. I'm showing $3 right here, and I know, everybody else will probably say too that, once you see something on the shelves at the store that you, even if you're going into the store just to, pick up, once you first walk into the store, that, if you're just going in there, maybe to get some bananas, or maybe just a gallon of milk or something like that, or some juice or something like that, or if you're just going into the store, maybe to pick up a snack or a soda, that you may come across the magazine section, and it's going to say something like, that about every magazine or something like that, and the money that's made off of there, and then that's donated to the parties and all. So a lot of those donations, especially. But let's just say though that nowadays that you can contribute in a lot of ways nowadays. Like anybody say too, that it don't always have to be in cash, but still that if you're making donations, if you're contributing to to charities, or to a fundraiser or something like that. But at the time, though, it sure seems that way. That that $3 right here, and so I the way I got that word right there is knowing about is that whenever you do whenever you're looking around and shopping around in the magazine section at the stores. And it's possible that they say that, you pay no taxes, you just got to pay the sales price right there, $3. But still, that so a lot of times it sure seems that way. That you hear that. I even heard on the radio that if you even use the word because, because if somebody asks you a question and then you say because, but so let's just say that that like even for the Black Friday sales that you say is toward okay, $3, and if you're even if you're trying to invest into something, even if you're trying to start an investment, and you may think too that $3, even $5, that's not going to get you anywhere. But let's just say though, maybe if it could, and let's just say that maybe if you had to invest, put like an investment toward that. Within 5 months or so, or maybe 2 months. So I say if you want to start like investing in something and want to know about how much the deposit is, and so a number of ways of how you want to do the math though. But still that a lot what I do see whenever it comes to the elections though, that a lot of it is really about about donations and endorsements and also, but still, that I know, like you may have heard that before, toward that maybe don't be surprised if you do get a text message from somebody, and want to know too. Yeah. So if I say that they're wanting you to, they're trying to collect a number of signatures, and let's just say if it's maybe related to personal property tax, or if it's related to the educational, district of education or something like that. A lot of parents might even say too that there's going to be discussions, from the school board about what do you think the state should do with the educational systems and all that. And so it sure seems that way that, they ask for signatures and I really don't know if I need to better explain that about, show an actual autograph and knowing about what the parties do with those signatures. But all I can really say is that that a lot of times your donations, but I can just say that that with those signatures, and that's basically another way of stating that that's the voice. And I guess to say, despite about if you're Democrat or Republican, but tell everybody else too that that whenever whenever you were younger, that I can remember writing my name on the spelling test, and it was like, want to know too that what do you think of it whenever you do write your name on the top of the paper there, on the top right, if you sign and date it. And a lot of times about how many people are going to really say that, you don't have to put the date on there, just sign it and just say that you're opposed to that decision. And so I know that, how many of us might even say too that they're on it, the computer systems, the date's already on there. You don't even have to you don't even have to remember what day or what time it is. Just knowing about the person that you talk to and for what they think about certain decisions and all that. So a lot of times we'd be surprised about what signatures, and even though whenever you do buy something at the store, such as like a magazine, and half the time you want to know too is to where that if there's going to be any signatures that are going to be required whenever you do buy a catalog. And let's just say if it is over something important, and let's just say if it's about our tax dollars for the Missouri amendments. And so let's just say that if you do buy something from the store, and let's just say that on a receipt it's going to maybe show something like that go to this website, and there's a form that you gotta sign, just to say that if you oppose that decision or not. And I think and I don't think right now, as of right now, I think it's over the Postal Service actually. So whenever you do buy a Sunday's paper, and I guess the next 11 weeks here until the elections, that we're talking about that on the receipt it's going to maybe show something like go to this website and enter this code, and take complete a survey. And so they're going to say is to where that once you make a purchase of this paper or this catalog, or something that you might get in the mail or even from the censor's office, that whenever you buy something, and then they might say that there's more to it, but at least that'll give you the ability to where you can make your voices heard, and knowing about for what the things that go on in the state and in the country that you think that should approve. And also so other than like buying a candy bar, and we probably already know too that at least until election time that that $3 is enough. That's about how much money it costs just to buy a candy bar nowadays. And so if you go into the store to buy a candy bar, and let's just say if it's a Three Musketeers a candy bar, or Skittles, or if it's Laffy Taffy, and you go in there and just say about how much money that you spend on a candy bar is about how much that you would be paying for this catalog here. And you buy the paper or the catalog, and then there's something in there telling you that that if you want to stay posted with the latest results, and as well as all my and I know that even if you're going to be buying this item, maybe using a gift card, and let's just say if that was the case, that your vote's still going to count, even if you bought this, if you had maybe if you had some credits, like on your Google account, on your PayPal account, that you were able to buy this catalog, using the credits that you had on that account, and then you can go and add your name to this ballot here. And so a lot of times it sure seems that way, that maybe not everybody really knows how all of it works. So I guess that's maybe just a little bit of maybe why so many members have not responded yet. So a lot of the stuff that they don't quite understand, and maybe not everybody really knows exactly how it works. And so that's why that they're saying is toward that you'll go to the at the polling locations and talk to those I'm like, yeah, those people. I mean, and I know that especially around election time, that they might be working about maybe 8-hour shifts between now and election day, that to tell everybody about how the system works. And half the time you may want to, especially like at the library. At the library, that they might be leasing out a lot of areas. They might be renting out a lot of areas over there at the city libraries, just to be able to make sure that everybody understands all what they gotta do whenever it comes to the elections and all that. And if they don't understand the system very well, and go to the library, and there'll be somebody there that'll be able to help you out. And but to me though, it's like want to know just a little bit too, to where that I got the cell phone, I got the phone for a reason. But in case of anybody that might say too that even if it is Skype call, or if it's this call on maybe Snapchat or some app like that, and you want to know just a little bit too, to where that you might start the conversation by saying, Senator or Congressman, it feels real weird talking to you, because I'm just not used to talking. I'm like, even talking to the doctor. Even talking to the doctor, that you talk to the doctor, even by video, conference, connection, network. And so this is the type of stuff that you didn't have nearly 5 years ago. And by say almost all of us had it about 5 years ago, but just knowing about who was allowed to use it and all that. But really having all the right equipment, whichever that you want to think about. But really though, that I know that the first thing that's really going to come to my mind is knowing about, okay, no, you're not at your office, actually, you're at home. But so a lot of times everybody else will probably say too, that really, are you allowed to answer that call? Are you allowed to respond, at home, while you're at home? And so this year, a lot what I have seen, for what's been going on a lot, and I'm sure most of us have all experienced that, to where that if you're going to be at home, and people likely weren't too, that okay, are you in your kitchen, or are you in the living room, or in the bedroom? And so a lot of times that how many of us will probably weren't too, that if you're going to be at home, and let's just say if you're going to be on a call like on Messenger, and if you got the camera on to where people can actually see you and actually talk, and then let's just say that if you're trying to show them maybe like the flower bed, if you're working in the flower bed or something like that, and you were trying to show somebody something, maybe what the weather's doing or something like that. But still, though, it sure seems that way, that you want to kind of start the conversation by stating as to where that, it feels weird talking to you from home, just because that, that you're used to actually being at work, or you're used to being in an actual office and while you're working. And so that's why it sure seems that way, that here lately, though, it's like whenever I'm like, that a lot of things that you are doing from home, and half the time that you're likely thinking too that, well, working from home, I guess, does that kind of mean to where it doesn't really have to be that it don't count for any source of work, such as if you're really on the clock, or maybe that if you're doing it for job reasons, or if you're doing it for important work reasons or something like that. So it sure seems that way, to where that that whenever you're talking to somebody on call, and the first question that you're going to ask is that are you at home? Well, right now I'm in the car, so a lot of times it seems like, if you're going to be in the car, or maybe if you're going to be at the store or somewhere like that, or yeah, in the basement or somewhere. But still, that so a lot of what I have seen for the elections has been about that is toward that yeah, that a lot of this technology for what we see nowadays, and you may have you may be talking to you might be talking to somebody like a supporter, or it could also be an attorney. I'm like, yeah, a lawyer or a dentist, whoever, and thinking is toward that they're allowed to call you from home. That's all right. Due to the pandemic and everything. So that's one of the reasons why that you might get a phone call from a number that you may not recognize and all that. But still, but talking about right here, talk about for the elections right here, for endorsements. And so a lot of stuff, a lot of things that I kind of like wanted to talk about besides signatures right here, of actually about profiling. I know that most of us will probably know about how a profile works, right? It's basically, it's another way of how you want to state is to where it's like a front cover right here, to where if you want to put together a cover page, it talks about your experience and somebody who wants to recommend you to a company just because that you're based on your work experience and based on if you have any certificates and licenses that just to be able to do certain things, and let's just say if it's working in the field or maybe working in the office area or somewhere like that. So it sure seems that way that that whenever you put together a resume, that you start talking about, I'm like, yeah, but the possibilities within the next 2 years coming soon and all that. But really though, but let's just say the situation kind of comes by is to where that about marketing. And so let's just say that this is one thing I want to talk to everybody about right here whenever it comes to marketing right here. That if you got the marketing team right here, so let's just say that marketing, I'm like, really though, is marketing really just somebody just doing their job, or just trying to see about the path from where you're going and the applications that you're trying to fill out for a job, and as well as for what's been going on, follow up about the situation. So a lot of times it sure seems that way, that that a lot of the information, a lot of your information is provided to some of these companies, and some of them that could be third party. And you're likely one too, is that sometimes that that you don't want to be open-minded to a lot of these companies and a lot of these agents, just because that you are afraid that they're gonna maybe try to sell some of your information, the information for what you're qualified for, just because they're making money off of you. And but let's just say that maybe if it could be the other way around, is to where and if anything, that people might say that you might see a paycheck about maybe every 6 weeks or so. But I guess you could say that from with all that's going on now, but still that but whenever I do watch the conventions, also it sure seems that way, that whenever it comes to understanding a lot, but still about the politics and the promises and all, but still that I mainly want to talk about everybody here is about texting and calls. And so whenever you do pick up a catalog, and let's just say if it's a Sunday morning and you go to the store and pick up a catalog, that you might see something like that, such as text this person at this number, and I'm like, you may even hear it on the radio that for more details, text this word to this number. And so so I know that it sure seems that way toward it, that even though if the situation kind of comes by is toward if you walk into the store even with a gift card, that you might make a purchase of one of those magazines or one of those catalogs, and let's just say if it only costs you $3, and you may want to that there's more that you can do with that magazine, such as with that money that's contributed. Or if I say if you complete, I'm like, if you complete a survey, and as well as if you're willing to answer a few more questions about what's been going on, and as well as if you have an interview. If you complete an interview, and then then yeah, you'll be able to receive a badge, and as well as logo design or maybe a bookmark. And so yeah, that a lot of things that we do see nowadays, and I'll tell everybody here that a lot what I do see nowadays, which I keep thinking too, that you're kind of having to put off some of the important stuff that you really were trying to work on, such as jobs, and as well as if it's like taking care of a bill or something like that. But still, that I know from back in 2016 that I can remember that people I kept thinking that people were probably going to say too that, yeah, this is an important day for America. This is an important day for America here, and we need you to get out and vote. And I remember getting that form too. I'm sure I could probably look around and see if I can find that form that talks about that. For every for all those registered voters, if you go out and vote, that they would even put a grade on that grade report. They would give you at least a B plus, just for going out and voting. And let's just say that whenever you go out and vote, and maybe if you do purchase a catalog, or like if you purchase a hat, from the parties that you support. So let's just say if you do show more support, and maybe buy, it could be a flag or a T-shirt or something like that. So it sure seems that way that whenever election time does come around, it sure seems that way to where that, does that mean that you are excused, that you're dismissed from that meeting that you had to go to about that job? Does that basically automatically mean that you are dismissed from having to go to that meeting, so that way you can participate in the elections? And anybody say that, yeah, because around October 31st, that's usually around the time that finals are going to be due, and before all the students go on the Thanksgiving break, it is before winter break, that a lot of those students are going to probably be asking that question, such as that if I'm automatically excused from what I had to do so far as getting caught up with my homework and my school stuff and taxes. And I say that, well, really though, that what you would probably need to do is that you would just have to, I'm like, yeah, I'm sure people say, yeah, you will be excused, but that don't mean that that you don't have to have the papers ready, and that don't mean that you won't have to make that phone call or something. But still, that like for the election, that it sure seems that way, that just to keep people informed about what's going on. But still, really though, that one thing that kind of I'm like, $3 right here, but still that endorsement right here. So it sure seems that way, that talk about for marketing right here. That whenever I think about that, though, that it seems like that you go into the store and you pick up a catalog with a picture with a photo on the front cover right there that kind of approaches your attention, and it says on there, just for $3 you can pick this up, and if you want to add your name to the ballot, just so that way you can get your voices heard. And so yeah, and I know that besides going to the store, and then I know that there is a way that you can do that online too. So let's just say that that now that even on Amazon, you could probably get the electronic version too. You could probably download the electronic version of something and actually have your voices heard. It's like you download that electronic file, and let's just say if it's on Amazon, or if it's on another site like such as Barnes and Noble, and you can actually the file, I'm like, that document, that same 4 or 5 page document would be available on a real electronic e-reader device or Kindle device, the type of electronic device that you might have. And so that's why it's like, say, if you have the electronic version, and then it's possible. I say, yeah, well, if you install the electronic version, if you just take the extra few minutes just to kind of figure it out, and then you can go ahead and add your name to the ballot, and but still. So it sure seems that way, that especially around election time, that maybe not everybody knows how it works, and so that's why that if you just really have to leave that to the professional, to the expert, just shows like, oh, if you don't know how it works, then you can go and talk to somebody who does. And then so yeah, I think I see that a lot with the census office, census taker's office, and as well as the other places like the library. If you go to the libraries, and they can help you out with that, but still other places that you go to that they got that on their systems and you showed you about how that works, but still that but based on from my experience, though, it sure seems that way about every election, though, that you're going to have the Democrats and Republicans and 102 trying to get everybody to come together, so that way we can they can all agree about what's fair, and what they're agreed to be able to pass a bill and all. But I could probably say too that it seems like it's always the question about that if you're going to be a registered voter, though, and want to know about yeah, exactly, how is it how did you get my number, or how did you get my email, and so yeah, that so I know that like everybody else will probably say, yep, we're just doing our job, we're not really, I'm like, yeah, putting everything up for market, but still, just to follow up about if you know about this, about who's running for the Senate and all, and so it sure seems that way, that I'll even tell everybody that, like I said before, that from ever since from back in 1984, that I was just a baby when a lot of stuff was going on around the election day of from back in 1984, and now it's like you pretty much know exactly how the elections work. And in case if anybody were to ask me that ever since back in 1984, that do you even remember or recall anything that was going on during that time? And so you're likely thinking too that really, if you could understand it or if you could not understand too much of it, but just knowing about it is toward that yeah, a lot of things that you see on TV, and you're probably thinking, yeah, blah blah blah, whatever that they're talking about. So yeah, that like on the weekends, like on Saturday and the Sunday morning, that you turn your TV on, and then they're going to be talking about stuff, but still though, that really, what's the best way of how to explain it, other than the fact about that you see something on TV, and you may not know how it works, or if anything, you might think is toward it, yeah, that we've been doing this since 1992, or maybe since 1991, and we just want to know that what's taking you so long. Just to be able to, I'm like, but still, I'm like, well, I was not even registered to vote back in 1991. From back in those days, I'm like, yeah, you had the radio and you had the TV, but I'll even tell everybody that before I was even registered to vote, that's how a lot of times I was able to follow up about what's been going on in the state, in the country, and as well as the school board, is that's how I was able to get a lot of the latest news. And so that's why it sure seems that way, to where that really what's taking me so long. Well, really though, it seems like that you had to wait until you're old enough to really to understand. Maybe you just gotta wait until a certain time just to be able, but still, like everybody else would probably say that, yeah, for if you're going to be a senior, or if you're going to be a retired veteran or somebody like that, and just want to know too that you may not have been aware of all what was going on in the country, but still but talk about for endorsements, as well as text messages and calling, and so a lot of times it sure seems that we, and I know, I'll even tell everybody that it's just like advertising, and so whenever you put up an ad in the paper, and let's just say that if you're going to maybe be putting up an ad in the paper, because if you're raising money, maybe if you're having a garage sale around the block or something like that, if you're trying to get rid of some unwanted items or something like that, if you're having a yard sale, you might put flyers or signs around the block or something like that, say if there's a sale going on, if you're trying to get rid of some old unwanted items or something like that, for garage sales, but still that I'll tell everybody that back whenever I was young, that's a little bit more what I was actually doing. Is that I was actually, I had some, like, especially the Boy Scouts. I'll tell everybody too that that the activities going on at the school, and plus a little bit of the Boy Scouts. Whenever I was in the Boy Scouts, I did a little bit of that stuff. But really though, that even till the president, I'm like, even the Democrats, but I say too that well, really, this is not really the Boy Scouts, but really though that doesn't remind you at all of the Boy Scouts. I'm like, well, you can hold up the flag and you put on a uniform and you do activities and so in the kind of way it does remind me just a little bit of the Boy Scouts, but still you get into groups and all that, but still that one thing that kind of say about the elections though, that for what goes on in the country though, that really though, it's all about opinions heard and it's all about the voices heard, ain't it? You don't really, it seems like not everybody listens to you, even in the Boy Scouts. So a lot of times it sure seems that way whenever you go to those meetings, that a lot of people like me would probably ask as to where that if people would allow each and every member who's attending that meeting to listen to what each other wants to say, and if they got a question about something. But you got some of these meetings to where that if you're not the host and you're the guest and you just got to sit there and listen to them talk and all that. But still, but I just, the way I think about the elections though, that, whenever you endorse somebody, that, say that basically endorsement means that that they're recommended and knowing about that somebody else is willing to give you that good feedback and credit about for talks about for the elections, for president and then for congressman. But anyway, thanks for watching everyone, and talk about safe with Arizona for